Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome, wherever you are on the globe, and whenever you get to watch tonight's show, which, as ever, in fact, tonight's show is Visually Impaired Rugby and Life as a Sporting Ambassador. Two fantastic, inspirational guys back on for the show tonight for you. And yeah, before we start, as ever, we're brought to you tonight by our good friends at coffeedog.ie, who are sustaining us throughout the show and throughout the whole of the summer and throughout the whole of COVID-19. And they are now the official suppliers to Three Blokes, a Ball and Bob. So go to coffeedog.ie. And when you put your order in the promo code at the end, as people keep asking me, yeah, there's a promo code for you now. It's SHEP, S-H-E-P. Put that in and we'll give you 20% off. So that's thanks to our friends at coffeedog.ie, because we are supporting local businesses as best we can. So what's been happening before I bring tonight's two guests on? What's been happening in the world? Well, on the downside to every crisis, stories picked up this week, apart from the thousands and thousands gathering together across Ireland and UK and other places in the world, no doubt. There was 5 youths in Dublin who stopped a nurse when she was out running. She just come off 3 nights in an ICU, and they were coughing in her face and spitting at old people and stuff like that. Absolutely disgraceful. No need for the parents. Get a grip of your kids, would you? And the other side is, we are giving a shout out to any small businesses, local businesses, anywhere in the globe who are doing well during COVID-19 to try and keep it, because it's small businesses that make a town. So every time you think now, all of those small businesses that you have gone to in the past and asked them to support your fundraiser, now's the time to give back, because they are the lifeblood of the town. So do that. But at the same time, if you hear of anybody who is profiteering from what's going on, let us know and we'll give them an advert shout out. On the positive side, it's great to see some photos and some videos of Venice and the canals. I am aware that it's the silt that's settled now, so it's looking a lot cleaner. But in 6 weeks, having the fish back in the canals of Venice and having the swans back is absolutely fab. And a random act of kindness from a small business. We've got a fantastic little cafe restaurant in the centre of Gorey in North Wexford, where I live, called The Hungry Bear, run by a lovely couple called Louise and Ken Redden. Now, what they did was they've had to close because of the current situation. They put all of the food outside, put a post up and said, come and get it. It's all yours. It's free. What a random act of kindness that is. And I think that's absolutely fab. So there are more random act of kindnesses, and there are more engagement and more positive things coming out of where we are, and they will continue to do so. So on to tonight's show. We're looking at Visually Impaired Rugby and Life as a Sporting Ambassador. Please, I'm going to bring both of those back in straight away now. Welcome back to the show. They've been on once before. Bass has been on twice. The Head of Business Development and the Visually Impaired Rugby Manager at the Change Foundation, Alex Bassan. Bass, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me on again. I don't know how I managed to slip the vet, but appreciate it.
Good man yourself. And the man that is a legend, fly half for Benetton. It's not Benetton Treviso anymore. It's just Benetton Rugby. And Italy, former Leinster man, real inspiration. And more importantly, to me, he's a sporting ambassador for the Change Foundation and for International Mixed Ability Sports. We'll come on to TCF shortly. Ian McKinley, welcome, Ian, from Italy. How are you, sir?
I'm good. No, thank you. Like Alex said, thank you very much for having me on. It's always good to chat, and I suppose particularly at this time, it's good to break up my day.
Absolutely.
So appreciate it.
Super. Listen, you're all welcome to the show. If you've got any questions or comments for the lads, then please throw them up. Bass, so tell us very brief, just remind us all about the Change Foundation, who you are, what you do, and how you got into Visually Impaired Rugby, brother.
Absolutely. So the Change Foundation, we're a charity that uses sport to help marginalised, predominantly young people, to create transformational change in their lives. So a lot of the work we do is face-to-face interaction with young people. Majority of those recruited face-to-face too. So whether you're from background relating to gangs, women and girls in care, refugees, disability, we run a variety of programs, predominantly in London, on a long-term basis, kind of supporting that journey into positive change, basically. So what we did is that about 3.5 years ago, we have some colleagues with visual impairment, and we were chatting one day around rugby, because we're all rugby lovers at Change Foundation, and we just asked them, do you play? Do you have a game? Turned out they didn't. So we got some colleagues together. We got some friends together. Our CEO, Andy Sellins, actually developed blind cricket in England 20 years previously. So we've got some knowledge around developing a disability sport. And then it started to grow. We got together, we trialed it, we played it. Few of the questions we started asking straight away was, what are some of your frustrations about visually impaired sport as a whole? And a lot that come out was it gets adapted quite a lot, it gets changed quite a lot, it doesn't feel like the sport. So for us, it was key that we kept it like rugby, it felt like rugby, sound like rugby, to where we created a version of the game which is a 7-a-side touch format of the game, played on half the size of a rugby pitch. And essentially, when you turn up, you're basically watching a game of sevens touch, but everyone on that playing field is registered blind.
Yeah, absolutely superb, mate. It's really good. And I understand there are a couple of variations, but you started a lot of this off, didn't you? You going back to when the Lions last toured in New Zealand, if I remember right?
Yeah, 2017. So, it started back then. We, as I said, colleagues of ours, myself, colleague at the time, Si Ledwith, who well, and so does Ian. We were kind of, along with our staff members, were the real drivers of the game, really trying to find out the most safest way of playing and the most accessible way of playing. So we come up with the game, we come up with the rules, and as you said, we wanted to keep it as much like rugby as possible, but what can we do to adapt it to make things like the ball audible? So we've been working with Gilbert to make an audible ball which has bells in it. Now there's going to be a period where we're going to have to keep adapting to make that more audible. We looked at the players' clothing. How can we make it more visible? Putting large numbers on the back so we can communicate by colour and number, as well as putting more of a square on the front so people have a target. But the most important thing that we concluded was it's the way the referee communicates during the game, which is vital, basically. So essentially the referee is commentating the game without having to talk all the way through it. So it's a two-hand touch for a tackle. So I go to tackle you. The referee will say tackle number 1. Player puts the ball down on the floor, steps over, and dummy half comes in to play the ball. Okay, so that's phase number 1. Now the referee will referee on the defensive line, so they can get the defensive team back 5 meters and make sure everyone is onside. So tackle 1, defense back in line with me, player steps over the ball, the referee will say the ball is out, which means the defensive team, as long as they're onside, can step up, and away we go with playing. So every tackle, which there's 6 of them until there's a turnover, the referee will make sure everyone knows how many tackles there are. The referee will make sure the defensive line can get back onside. The referee will make sure that he'll tell everyone, or she'll tell everyone, that the ball is out and ready in play. But also they tend to try and referee. We try and teach them to referee in line with the ball. So if they're in the centre of the pitch, the wingers roughly know where the ball is, or if they're on a certain side of the pitch, the referee, wherever they are on the pitch, players tend to be able to pick up where the ball is on the pitch if their sight is a little bit less than others.
Brilliant. And is there a particular level of sight that to qualify to play?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's varying different sight categories, all from B1 up to B5, and obviously B1 being completely blind, or so basically, and then we go up from there: B2, B3, B4, B5. And then your sight gets better as you move up those categories. For us, number 1 at the moment, we don't. B1s don't necessarily play the game at the moment. It's a safety thing. You've got a lot of talented young sports people out there, or sports people who have played the game before and lost their sight, who the game moves very quickly, and we couldn't find a safe way to include a B1 at this point in time. So the game predominantly is B2 to B4. B5 have greater sight. It could be the fact that you have lost sight in your right eye but have 20/20 vision in your left eye. And again, it was a safety thing, but also then you had to look about balancing the game out to make sure it was competitive, and also everyone that was playing was getting a fair shot at the game as well. So in training we tend to open it up, as long as it's safe. But when it comes to actual tournaments, it's B2 to B4, which we've kind of settled on, just to make sure A, it's safe, and B, it's fair. But there's the biggest thing for us is all about developing a community, developing teams, developing friendships, confidence, all of those sorts of things that we know we gain from being at a rugby club. Now, does that say B1s and B5s can't turn up? No. Your B5 could be your next coach, could be your next, whatever at the club. Your B1s, we always need, more coaches, more support staff, physios, whatever it may be. So do we discourage from turning up? No, because, we want to be as inclusive as possible, but, there's our limits to certain games when you're playing.
Cool. And we'll swap between, I think, actually, guys, because I think this is quite interesting for people. Who have we got on tonight? First of all, we've got Dermot O'Rourke. Dermot, good evening to you, mate. I hope that you're well. We've got Wingnut up there in Ulster, White Walker 2, David Toppin. How are you, buddy? And Ian Gilbert, who's locked down there fully, our ambassador extraordinary in Madrid. Hola, Ian. Hope that you're well. You're right, the crisis will separate them. And more goodness than anything else. So, Ian, how did you get involved in becoming a sports ambassador for the Change Foundation?
Yeah, so I met Alex a couple of years ago. We happened to meet in Venice, which I suppose is not a bad place to meet on your first visit. So no, we'd been in touch via email before we met there, and Alex basically just put out the idea of what the concept of visually impaired rugby was, and obviously, given my story, my background, it obviously was a really intriguing prospect for me, and I really wanted to be a part of it. So, as it so happened, I was in England last summer and was privileged really to meet the group that was heading off for their World Cup in Japan. So they had a 3-game series against Japan, and I was able to meet them there and able to see what the guys were made of. Not just having a disability, but having the ability to be able to play this game, and certain things that most people wouldn't really think of. I mean, for example, you say to the players, run to the red cone, and they would say, well, where is the red cone? Yeah. There's certain things that you don't think about at all, and it's certainly, excuse the pun, but it is an eye opener really for people who are really abled, and it actually gave me a lot to ponder, a lot to think of, and how guys like that also see the game of rugby. They would see it in a completely different way to others, and it's a very exciting project. And I suppose the amount of people with visual problems in the world is huge, and it's definitely a game that can be tailored to those people in need, and to include as many people as possible into the wonderful game that is rugby. And that's the thing really that grabbed me. Absolutely.
So how long have you been living in Italy now?
Say again, sorry. The line is a little bit cracky.
How long have you been in Italy now?
So I've been in Italy for 8 years now.
Cool. And correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
No, so to give a little recap, I suppose. So I was playing in Ireland. My whole career, I came through the Leinster and the Irish ranks, and unfortunately at the age of 20 I just had a freak accident on the rugby field where a teammate stood on my eyeball, and the eyeball burst, and through various complications my retina crashed, which left me permanently blind in my left eye. And my other passion apart from playing was to coach, so I managed to get myself a coaching gig in a town called Udine in right in the border of Slovenia, so right in the north of Italy. And I moved over here when I was 22, and I haven't looked back since. I've been here since the summer of 2012, and with the help of my brother and a lot of people, I managed to help pioneer basically rugby eyewear, rugby goggles for visually impaired people. So I took to the field in 2014 after a 3-year gap, and managed to make it up to the international level. And so that's basically me till from 10 years ago till now. So that's how I've ended up here. So that's why projects like this that Alex is running are very, very important to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and of course, people, a lot of people who saw you the first time in the program were genuinely very inspired, and then of course it raises its head again when Ardy Surveyor, wore them. But you were the first person, weren't you? You worked with a company and with World Rugby. Is that correct? For the visually impaired glasses to wear them.
So yeah. So how they came along, they came about really that. It was IRB back in 2013. They were coming up with visually, they were coming up for rugby. There was a project already in motion, but myself and my brother, sort of accelerated things a lot quicker, I think, than what was ever imagined. So yeah, we were thinking that having got in contact with the IRB, so now World Rugby, we were thinking that the headquarters of this, scientific, detailed project was going to be in Japan or America or in Australia. And lo and behold, it was in a city called Bologna, which from where I was living was about 3.5 hours away. So, I mean, you couldn't get much luckier than that. So, I mean, I obviously got in contact fairly quickly with the head of that company, which is called Raleri. So they basically are a manufacturing company for ski goggles, for motocross, for all those sort of extreme sports, and then they decided to take on rugby. So that's how it came about, and they literally the 1st of January they became available. You could buy them online, and I believe I was the first person to buy them and use them.
Fair play. Yeah, that's excellent. Right, well, we've got who we got on? Dim Rook. David says, Ian, you're a legend, mate. You're inspirational, absolutely. There's not many people can say he went from being star fly half with ascending through with Leinster, having an injury like that, and then coming back, and then ended up playing at international level. It's but it's more than that. It's the way you conduct yourself, the way that you fought, the inspiration. I don't suppose genuinely you can imagine how many lives you've touched for youngsters coming through now who can wear those goggles, and also for anybody at any age who has had to or is overcoming adversity to achieve something in their lives, because it can be seen as being done. So I think that's there's a whole pile of things, not to blow smoke, mate, but there's a whole pile of things that that you do, and the fact that you've taken on doing the sporting ambassador role for the Change Foundation, I think is awesome. Des McCusker in France, who's currently on lockdown. Good to talk to you today. You've been chatting all across the globe today. Brilliant informative show. You're very kind and you're very easily pleased. Stuart Weir in South Africa. Stu, good evening to you. Hope that you are well. Ian Gilbert again in Madrid, amazing guy. Mark Hunter up there in Ulster. Geez, I'm getting to know everybody around the globe, me at the moment. Brilliant every time he's on, absolutely. Daz Everett, Daz, good evening to you, says absolutely brilliant. And Gregor Galway. Gregor's one of our inspirations who plays with the Next Ability Rugby up there in Ulster as well. What a story, absolutely superb. So as we come back to you, what's been happening since we last spoke to you? What has the Change Foundation of Visually Impaired Rugby been doing? I know you've been to Japan. Tell us all a little bit about that, mate.
Absolutely, Joe. Lots and lots happening. I think last time we spoke, we had 4 teams, 2 adult teams and 2 junior teams, just in London alone, and we were really looking at growing it. Since then, we've had massive support from the Wasps Legends Charitable Foundation. Our CEO ourselves, I'll brag a little bit about him now, but he's a former Wasp player himself. I think mainly semi-pro stuff, so he wasn't that good. But he's got a really good connection with the Legends Charitable Foundation, and we put in a grant, and we were very fortunate to be successful for one of their large grants, and they've really enabled us now to develop the game across the UK. So with our links with WASP, he's actually done some training with the WASP Foundation and some of their coaches there. So they're developing a visually impaired rugby team up in the Midlands, and we've been obviously working since the start with the Harlequins Foundation here in London, which is fantastic. And we're going to focus in the southwest at the moment. We've got a fantastic link with the RNIB, which is the Royal National Institute for the Blind. Some of you may know them. They've got a radio station. They do phenomenal things for people who are visually impaired, blind, and low sighted. Steve Weymouth in the south of the country has been really supportive in doing all that kind of, because he's that part of all that logistic work of getting to those clubs, getting them on board, and us being able to go and really kind of tell the story about VI Rugby like we're doing and the successes that we've had. So unfortunately, we've had to put it on hold a little bit, but over these coming months, we were training a variety of local community clubs, because that's what we really want to build, but also with the idea of linking them into that professional setup where they have, people are putting on that shirt and having all of those things that come along with a professional club. So Bristol Bears, Gloucester, Bath, all of those kind of teams down there, and moving into Exeter as well are on our radar, but not leaving out the Sale Sharks, obviously, in Manchester, who their foundation have been in touch, and again we're throwing back dates. So with the support of the Legends, as well as some others around the Rothschild Foundation, and we've really been able to develop the game across the UK, or certainly have the interest to take it across the UK, which is great, because ideally September this year, again permitting, we were going to have our first Premiership VI Rugby competition, which would have brought those teams together to play against one another. So we've been very fortunate. We've forged some really good relationships across the UK, as well as in London with Vision Foundation and Metro Blind Sport, British Blind Sport, who have actually, really enhanced us to grow the game. And a lot of that, as you mentioned earlier about Japan, has happened off the back of Japan. We were very, very fortunate to make a fantastic contact in Japan. Ayako Matsui, who was part of the team, or individuals who developed blind tennis, and she now sits on the International Blind Tennis Council. She got back to me. 1 out of 10 emails came back to me. I sent 10 out to Japan. She came back saying, "This is brilliant. I work in a blind school. I'd love it." A colleague and I went out January last year. We trained 40 coaches, 15, 18 players, and set up the Japanese Blind Rugby Union, which is fantastic. We met with the Japanese Rugby Union themselves. They said, "Look, in October, we've also got quite a big event happening too, called the World Cup." And we went, "Yes, we understand." But we ended up bringing the team out October last year, as Ian mentioned earlier, to Japan to play a 3-match series where we took on the Japanese blind rugby team, and it was fantastic. It was really, really good. As you can see from a few of the pictures I sent you earlier, Joe, which hopefully you can share, is that it was played with smiles on faces. It was competitive. You had people who had only started playing the game 8 months ago. You had people who had played the game 8 years ago and for whatever reason had to stop playing, all taking the pitch at Kumagaya Rugby Stadium and their training pitch outside to play a game that we all love, and then afterwards enjoy each other's company. And it was that whole, again, I'll reiterate, the whole community, the whole rugby family sort of environment that breathes through the game at all levels. So Japan was brilliant. It really helped us promote the game on a fantastic platform, as well as really kickstart something here in the UK as well.
Superb. Ian, do you? We're going to come back to the next 12 months when we start again. Ian, what's visually impaired rugby like in Italy? Does it exist, or is it still in its infancy elsewhere?
Yeah, so I think in the Italian Federation, they are pretty good with inclusion, and they've got a few projects with, for example, the mixed ability program. They you know, there's a lot of time into that. They've got a refugee team that play in the City Chi championship in here, which is a fantastic thing. So, I mean, obviously with myself and Alex had spoken, and obviously this virus has taken you know, a halt to pretty much every aspect. At the moment, there are far more important things that people are fighting at the moment, but we certainly had in place a plan to try and promote the game in Italy, and it's certainly a thing that Italians would definitely support, and the Federation, I have no doubt, would support it. So I mean, I get messages constantly from people from all walks of life, and particularly in Italy, saying that they have had a similar problem, or they know someone, and it's just the messages I receive. I do receive, I'd say, at least one a week, which is, you know, sort of 6 years on from when this is all since I started back, has been incredible. So no, I think there's a huge area of development for the game, and be in the UK now, you know, is a great success, but also a great pity at the same time. It really needs to get out there. And you know, the biggest thing for me from the small experience I've had with the team is just one is the talent that guys show. I mean, to be able to do some of the things they do is not easy, and just the enjoyment factor. I mean, rugby is based always on something that you love doing, and you know, just seeing the joy in guys, you know, partaking in the sport, and it is something to behold. So it's yeah, hopefully in the future something can take off here.
Yeah, good results. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. It's Three Blokes, a Ball and BOD. And tonight we're chatting with Alex Bassan, who is the Visually Impaired Rugby Manager and Head of Business Development at the fantastic Change Foundation, a global charity that changes kids' lives through sport and dance. And he is they're based in London, and obviously the Benetton rugby and Italian fly half, the great Ian McKinley, who everybody's great to see back on. Once again, it's brought to you by our good friends at coffeedog.ie, and you're all very, very welcome. We've got a White Walker 1, Nigel Quigley up there in Ulster. Sorry, Liam Byrne, first of all. When you've experienced serious eyesight problems, which I have, these are fantastic initiatives. There you go. Always great to see. Yeah, back to White Walker 1, Nigel Quigley. After morning, good rugby, folks. Oh, look, it's Ian McKinley. Very cool. Make him take it. And I think he's been on the rosé today, lads. Joe's cheeks looking very rosy tonight. It's actually, yeah, I went out in the wind today and it blew all my everybody saw me last night. In fact, on Sunday I had a beard and now it's gone. So we'll see how that grows back. What else have we got? Nige goes on to say his late mum used to work for the RNIB, the Royal National Institute for the Blind, which Bass mentioned just a minute ago. There, going to schools and organisations, highlighting what they did. I was at school, but remembers the old projector and black and white film. There was just none of this. Fantastic to see how see the inclusion nowadays. It really is, and inclusion in the general thing as well. But I think. I have often genuinely been, you know, said if I had to have an injury, God forbid you ever have that, I think the one that I wouldn't want to have would be to lose my sight, because I just think that sometimes you wander around and with your eyes closed, and just a difficulty in a small bit, it's unimaginable what it must be like. And I know people adapt, but for you, Ian, when you first had the injury. Because you had the injury and then you had a small setback, didn't you? How did you find adapting and coping when that happened to you?
Yeah, sorry, I think the line has got a little bit bad, but I think I got the gist. I got what you're asking. So, yeah, I mean, no, I think first and foremost, I mean the big thing, a huge amount of credit goes to taking faith I suppose. But biggest thing is that you always learn. You still there?
Yes,
no,
I'm me.
The biggest thing is that you always. Yeah, the biggest thing is that you're always learning, and yeah, I mean, I'm not, totally stupid to think that I'm not different to other people. Therefore, you have to adapt a few things. I mean, the biggest thing that I do find difficult is kicking, because I'm left-footed and I'm blind in my left eye. So I've had to change how I kick, which is a work in progress. It really is, because I haven't. Yeah. I don't feel I've mastered, so it's definitely a work in progress. But the biggest sort of motivating factor for me is as I said, is people writing to me, and that huge amount of encouragement to keep going. And but it's certainly not easy. I mean, there are days that when you're facing Bassan, who's 130 kilos, and he's running down your left hand side channel, and it's there have been easier days, but that's part of the game, and you get over it.
Yeah, and of course, we know your story. We know that the injury with the left eye, and yet we still see you playing at the top of the game and playing Test rugby as well for Italy. And yet simple things like that if you've got someone like anybody, blimey, you could have BOD running on your left hand side, but it's let alone someone like Matthew Bastero, but not having that spatial awareness there is I just don't think that people would be cognizant about that at all. I mean, it's phenomenal. Bass, so
yeah,
what you've got? Sorry, go on, mate.
No, you finished. Sorry, I interrupted you. No, but I mean, there's a massive. I mean, what I've learned is there's a massive difference between Pro 14 and international rugby. The speed of the game, the physicality. I mean, there's a bit of a difference playing England, with the greatest respect, playing things at home in Treviso. But again, that's all the exciting part of it, is that you're learning and you're testing yourself against the best. I mean, all I need, which every 10 needs from his teammates, is just people to talk to him. So, yeah, certain things are more difficult, and you need people to talk to a lot more. And, it's just a lot of stuff that you don't see off the field. I mean, just a lot of...
Yeah, I think I've sticking a little bit there. I've just...
a lot of... which to it, a lot of it.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. You stuck there a little bit. I've just interestingly, one of the downsides to the current crisis is that as everybody is at home 24/7 using all the bandwidth up, no doubt my missus next door is gaming as well. But it's the whole estate. The whole estate will be overused. So I'm down to a third of what would normally be on. But there you go. John Smith in Hoylake, who is a Treviso fan, a Benetton rugby fan. They run on the Wirral in Merseyside. There's a pub who I know that every well known about this, called the Hoylake Treviso, and I sit in their forum as well. Great bunch of lads, and they follow Benetton rugby in Hoylake on the Wirral, from a pub up there. John, welcome, and I hope that you're doing well. So Bass, Japan. What's the next sort of 12 months for you, and then we can get Ian to cover some things about what he's doing at the moment. What's your plans when we get back into a sense of normality?
Absolutely. So we're going to continue looking at developing the game across the UK. Absolutely, as you said, that support from the WASP legends, and the fact that we've got clubs, communities involved wanting to do it. Fantastic. You touched upon kind of Italy as well, Six Nations. We're really looking at developing the Six Nations. Hopefully around March 2021, we hope to have all being well, our first kind of Six Nations competition. Whether that's all six is another thing. Ian and I have been talking and been working closely with Benetton to see how we can develop the game in Italy, and that unfortunately had to be put on hold due to this. But the fact that we've got clubs like Benetton willing to develop the game and support the game is massive for us. We've got a fantastic club in Wales with the Cardiff Blues and the Cardiff Blues Foundation. They've absolutely, for me, kind of got it right. Actually, I know Ian's visited the squad. Sure. But I visited about a month and a half ago, and because they got AstroTurf pitch, they train on the actual stadium at the Arms Park. And when I was there, they were training on half the pitch, and the first team were training on the other half of the pitch. And straight afterwards, they're in the bar, they've got their kit on, they're having a drink. That whole kind of getting into the mindset of you're wearing a blue shirt, you're on the first team pitch because you can do it great, but then straight back into the clubhouse, that whole community thing and of being together, developing, friendships and being able to travel home together, all those things that, we take for granted when we were playing. So realistically, the idea over this next period is keep working in the UK, get these Six Nations clubs up and running, spreading over to Ireland. Ian put me in touch with a fantastic guy in Ireland, Cara Sport. So hoping I might pop in and see you soon, Joe. And then looking at France and Scotland as well. And we're always open for people if they've got suggestions, if they know people in France and Scotland who might want to take the game on. And then, in 2021, there's something else huge happening in the world of rugby, which happens to be a Lions tour. So thanks again, Joe. You put me in touch with a fantastic gentleman, Andrew Daniel, who I spoke to yesterday, based in Cape Town. Again, exactly what we've done in New Zealand, exactly what we've done in Japan. Go over, train, teach, support the development of the game, make it sustainable. It's not just pop in, turn up, we want to do this, bugger off. It is a turn up. How can we make BI rugby sustainable in your country so you can grow it? Let's bring a team over. Let's have a showcase during some of the biggest spectacles so we can get the word out there. So the idea in 2021 is we take a blind Lions team, and once we start developing the Six Nations, we've got Cardiff, we're going to develop Ireland, Scotland, we can start picking players from those other nations and travel over to South Africa during the Lions tour and have our our second tour as Lions, so to speak.
Absolutely superb. Alan Crockwell actually just saying that he hopes that you're well, and hopefully see you in Cork for IMAS. IMAS, who's watching, we'll cover that very, very briefly with Ian, is the International Mixed Ability Rugby Tournament, which actually unfortunately has been cancelled now. But effectively, it's the Mixed Ability World Cup, which should have taken place in June of this year, which we're going to be covering. Great from the International Mixed Ability Sports Foundation there. Great bunch of lads. But that hopefully will revisit itself again. And I'll put this up a couple of times during the show, and at the end I will stick it into the comments, as I will some of the photos, Alex, if you don't mind, that you sent me today. I'll put those in to the thread on this week, because I think it was fab. You can just see that in the left hand corner, though, right hand, as you're looking at the Japanese and the English players, VI players, after playing the game. That's what it's about. It's about rugby family, and it's great what you say about being a Cardiff. It's that sensation that they're actually part of. It's just, first team, A team, academy, visually impaired. For me, it's that mindset which is going to bring more people along, because you're aspiring to be a top level player in whatever that discipline is, whether it's 7s or 15s or the academy or whatever. So I think it's great. So there we are. That is the URL link to the Change Foundation Impaired Rugby. That's Alex Bassan's email address should you want to contact him and find out more about it for your area, or where you can learn to play, or where you can take part in doing that. Alex, I think it's absolutely superb where you're going with that. And as in even just, it's 12, 14 months, I think, since you were both on, how much you've achieved in that genuinely is absolutely massive, mate. So fair play to you. Ian, what's the current situation across in Italy for you and the family and everything at the moment? How are things? I mean, we've seen it being the epicenter of real bad stuff happening, but how is it where you are, and how is Italy in general, mate?
Yeah, so we've been. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks down in lockdown, so it's a pretty pretty scary time. A lot of people are having to deal with a lot of grief and financial worry, which is coming out of this. So we basically are stuck in our element. Thankfully, we have a dog which permits us to go out, because Italians in one of the rules have said that you're allowed to walk your dog, but it has to be within 200 meters of where you live. So we try to stick to a routine. You know, a certain time we walk the dog, we exercise. By that time, hopefully it's lunchtime. Then you do, I don't know, you read or you write or you play the computer or something, and then hopefully you're at dinner time, and then afterwards you watch a film or something. Maybe 3 different components. Yeah, I think it's a strange one. It's never happened in our lifetime, but obviously it's a very sad situation with all the deaths that are happening. But I think the thing, just with so much uncertainty as well, that creates a bit of people. They just are so uncertain as to what will it mean after. That frightens people.
Yeah, very, very much so. How are you managing to do any training, or can you train and do anything at the moment? Are you sort of on just a personal regime?
Benetton have been pretty good in sending programs, and they open the gym for 10 minutes at a time for groups of 2 to go in and pick up what they want. But I think it's very much an individual case, you know, because guys would have a garden, some wouldn't, you know. So sure. I'm fortunate enough to have a little area where I can park my car, and I run around my apartment block, and that takes about 20 seconds. So if you do 100 of those, you're pretty much sorted. It's not the most exciting, but to try keep up the same standard is very, very difficult. But I think just more for your brain, just to get out of your house is just so important. So yeah, I mean, it's funny, you notice whenever you don't train just how little. I'm not a massive eater, but whenever I do train, I eat, but I'm really down to the bare minimum of, you know, 3 normal meals, and they're not exactly, the plate isn't as what it normally would be. So you actually do notice it in the shopping bill. But when you're not training as much, you're not. That's something you've noticed, a big change. Yeah.
Do you find that in Italy there's a mindset change to the way people are looking at their lives, reevaluating their lives?
Say that again, Joe. Sorry, the line it keeps cracking.
Do you find in Italy that people are starting to reevaluate their lives? You know, what's important, the pace of life, all of those type of things? Because certainly we are here, and I think in the UK there's a sea change in the way people will approach their lives from now on in.
Yeah, I mean, I think Italy's had such a big spike for maybe a few reasons. One is being, I think, the culture of embracing. So, you know, for us, if we were to meet each other, it would be a casual sort of handshake, which is grand. But in Italy, it's always the double kiss on the cheek for, you know, men and women. So that's a big part of a cultural way of doing things, which could be one of the reasons why a lot of people have this. So I think, I mean, I definitely think there is a togetherness in this. I think people have not, like I've seen in the UK and Ireland, the unfortunate scenes of the you know, the panic buying in supermarkets, which you know, doesn't help anyone. Here, in fairness to everyone, the shops are always, you know, orderly queues that are formed outside, and there's been no brawling as far as I'm concerned anyway in the area that I live in. People are fairly respectful of the rules, and of course it's not ideal, but you know, you're been asked just to comfort of your home for a few weeks, which, you know, I think even someone said to me, you know, people are asked to go to war at times, you know, whereas we just have to make this little sacrifice. So I think people here are generous to the challenge, and there's certainly a sense of togetherness and to get through this together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being a veteran myself, we get quite used to over the years. I'm going on 6-month operational tours and locking yourself away. So we can become lonesome, one-man isolated, miserable bastards anyway. So it's a bit easier for some of us than it is for others. Mate, listen, tell us about.
There's a lot of guys on our team who wouldn't have girlfriends or they're living on their. So I don't know. That would be certainly tricky for them. But as you said, there are some people that don't mind their own company. But I think even we've got nearing their mid-80s that live beside us, and you check in and you make sure you do the shopping for them if they're in need and things like that. So they're obviously very important things.
They are. I remember seeing the other day one of the forgive me, I can't remember his name. One of the Italian players who is giving up his time, isn't he? He's driving ambulances or something. Phenomenal.
Yeah, so Maxime Mbanda, who's the flanker who plays with Zebre, so he volunteers with the Red Cross down in Parma, and he simply drives back and forth and 12-hour shifts a day. From what I believe now, I know a lot of guys here asked a similar thing, and we were the team was strictly told by the president of the Veneto region that you're not allowed to do it. So we're on strict instructions not to do it, but he's obviously doing fantastic work, and any little bit that he does is fantastic. So fair dues to him, fair play to him.
Good man. Listen, tell us briefly about how do you find life as a sporting ambassador? I mean, it's obviously something that's very important to you. What do you get from being a sporting ambassador? Because it's a lot to add to in your busy life with a family, professional sports athlete.
Yeah, I think the real hard workers and the people that deserve all the credit are the people like Alex there. They're the real people who are working behind the scenes that are, getting games like this from the ground up. They really work tirelessly. And I mean, for me, the greatest benefit and what brings me happiness is seeing other people happy and seeing people who necessarily wouldn't have been given a chance getting the opportunity to fulfill something that they really love to do. So I ripped away from me and I got it back, and that feeling of getting it back is you can never buy someone that. You can never, it's just something that is there. I will never ever forget the moment that I stepped back onto a rugby field for the first time in 2014 and a mother there afterwards. And I'm sure the feeling maybe did play rugby beforehand, getting that feeling of putting on a jersey, getting muddy, falling down, getting bumps and bruises, having scratches in the shower, and when you shower it burns. All those things are memories that you take to the grave with you, and
absolutely.
That just gives me huge satisfaction to see those guys who come over much bigger obstacles than what I have ever come over. To see them out there is a bigger reward I could ever get. So that's what we're here on to be a part of projects like this. And I'm sure Alex would be the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just for us having someone like Ian, Andy, and as a sporting ambassador is huge. You can't really monetize those sorts of things because it's, yes, there's a name and there's a brand that comes with it, but the fact that you've got years of experience and knowledge within the game that they can share with individuals and teams that just look up to them and admire them and hang on your every word. But also, Ian's got lived experience, stuff that I can't ever connect with. I can coach and train, and probably better than Ian, if I'm completely honest. I've seen him coach and he's terrible, but I'm joking. See, but the fact
the line is not connecting, so I can't know what you're saying. I'm assuming you're slightly back, so that's all right.
But honestly, on a serious note, yeah, the fact that you've got that lived experience and that connection is something that, you know, I would never be able to connect with the team around and the players and individuals around. So on many levels, you know, so you've got the site, you've also got, you know, being a professional player and athlete, and a lot of the players that do play the game are into their health and staying fit and training. So all of those bits that a sporting ambassador brings, not just the fact that it's a name and you've done this, it's everything else that comes with it, and also then understanding that they're an individual that just loves rugby like us. And you know, the team going to Japan, the best session that they had was the one that Ian was at. Why? Because they've been coached by a professional player, but also someone who's been through similar trauma or conditions than themselves. And you know, that you can't put money on, and you can never forge or try and do. Those things happen, but they happen because of individuals like Ian who put themselves out there to say, you know what, I would love to give something back, not just to give myself a better name, but because I want to. And as soon as you want to, that's when it all happens and it all comes together.
So yeah, superb. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to the show. Three Blokes of Ball and Board. Tonight we are looking at visually impaired rugby and life as a sport and ambassador with Alex Bassan. Bass is the head of business development and the visually impaired rugby manager at the fantastic Change Foundation, helping youngsters globally through sport and dance, but based in London, and the legendary inspirational Ian McKinley from Benetton and Italy Rugby. And I'm just going to stick up there again and stick this up at the end of the show, and I'll put it into the thread. That is the Change Foundation. That's the visually impaired rugby, and it tells you all about it. And there's Alex Bassan's email there as well to be able to get hold of him if you want to learn how to play or find out where the local clubs are or what they're doing next, or if you want to support them financially. Jesus, listen, lads, if you're into rugby and you run a business and you've made nothing and then give something back, because the Change Foundation will take every single penny that you can give them, and so they can set up another country, sponsor a country with visually impaired rugby. Ian, what are you working on currently? Because you're doing stuff with the Change Foundation as well, and so what's your plans over the next couple of years in this and generally every other area?
Joe, you'll have to again. Sorry, the line keeps going. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think it's the fact that what I need to do is go round and knock on every door in the estate on a Wednesday and say, don't use for 2 hours to do it. What are your plans for the next couple of years, both as a sport ambassador, and is this something you'd like to do once you finish in rugby, or is you'll see where things go?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose working with the Change Foundation has given me a bit of more to try and, if it's possible, I think in the future would love to. And I think one of these big mottos is just inclusion and just to have people from all different backgrounds and physical makeups to make a rugby team, and I would be a big advocate of that. So yeah, it's something absolutely that on a personal level would really intrigue me, and I'd love to be a part of that. Even you touched on it, one of the comments about the mixed ability rugby in Cork. Unfortunately, it's been postponed until the following year, but even there, I mean, the work that's been put in there by IMAS, by the people down in Sundays well. Even just to go watch one of their games is just incredible, you know. So it's definitely it's I'm sure it's pretty tough work, but it's the reward is a lot bigger.
Yeah, definitely. It was a pleasure last year having. In fact, actually, I think it was the first show we. In fact, it was one of the shows that you were on, wasn't it, Bass? We had Martino Corazzo on from the Mixed Ability Sport, and we connected both together. And they're doing a phenomenal gig as well. And the Sundays well rugby club down in Cork, who have a fantastic. And I have to give a shout out as well to Bumbles Rugby in the UK, who were the first English club ever as well on mixed ability there as well. Nigel, quickly up in Ulster, says to you lads, the organisation and their planning behind is impressive, guys. Brilliant stuff. Again, it is raising that awareness for people where we go. So, guys, listen, thanks very much for going through some stuff with us tonight. Bass, just leave us where your aspirations for the next 12 months. Say we start again in September or whatever, whenever we start again, you know, where would you like to see you being in, or visually impaired rugby, being in next 12 to 24 months?
I just see the game growing as much as possible. Us being able to develop it across the UK, really feed it into communities, but as well as those Premiership clubs across the UK, as well as developing the Six Nations and the Lions Tour. So we get some competitive competitions going, we get more people trained up around the game. But one of the biggest things for us is also building in some awareness, site health into that training that we do as well. So we don't just go to clubs and train coaches and volunteers and players. We also do, like you touched upon earlier, Joe, around what sense would you like to lose. You know, if you go get your eyes checked once a year, you've got a stat that came out, you've got 50% chance of reducing sight loss. And if you ask people what sense would you want to lose, smell, taste, most people probably would say sight. So there's a big piece of health education around eye health education and sight loss that we're doing, developing with the RNIB as well. So really it's just doing more of those, really, developing the game just across the UK, Six Nations, and really looking forward to that Lions Tour. I must do a plug myself, actually. I just thought of it now. There's a gentleman called Alex Mead who runs a rugby journal. I don't know if anyone subscribes to it, knows it. It's a fantastic magazine. And they've done a couple of bits with us in, but they do some fantastic stories. So if anyone just loves reading about rugby, basically, and loves the feel of a magazine, I must admit the Rugby Journal is absolutely fantastic. And there's a brilliant photographer who does their photos, Hanley de Boer, who's not only a brilliant name, a brilliant photographer. So do check it out. It's fantastic. Really,
well, send us the link to that, mate. Send us the link and or put it in as a comment on the thing. No problems at all. If it's certified by you, brother, then it's certified at all. And Rhiannon Phillips, or Welsh Wizardess, saying lovely picture of Gareth Davis there, Joe. Gareth Davis being in the picture. A Welshman playing for England, visually impaired. And look, there we go. The man himself. There we go. It is indeed. Gareth Davis. Yeah.
He doesn't say the Bass. That's an insult.
Oh, good rules. Ian, leave us where you want to see your life in the next 12 months, mate.
Sorry, Joe. You'll have to repeat it.
What are you hoping to what are you looking for in the next 12 months from your perspective?
I mean, I suppose there's a lot of uncertainty with the situation now financially. So to be honest, my plans are a bit hazy. I don't even really know myself. So I suppose whenever we're through this period, I can reevaluate and go from there. But I suppose there's just so much uncertainty at the moment. I actually can't give you a proper answer.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 Blokes of Ball and BOD. We're up to 59 minutes and 49 seconds. And if I can finish off quickly, it'll be the first time ever we've kept within our hour slot. This is the Change Foundation's link to impaired rugby, to visually impaired rugby, and Alex Bassan, a good man at the top there, who is the Visually Impaired Rugby Manager and, more importantly, the Head of Business Development for the Change Foundation based in London. That's his email address. Contact him. And we've thoroughly enjoyed having Alex on tonight to give us an update of where we are, and the great Ian McKinley from Benetton Rugby and from Italy, and sharing
great Bassi.
Great.
I didn't want to bring it up.
We don't need to blow any more smoke up Passer's backside, do we? You know, you'll just do it all.
No,
lads.
No.
Lads, we will wish you all the very, very best for the next 12 months beyond to both what you're doing for visually impaired rugby and to your families. Please stay safe and give our very, very best to everybody in the UK and Italy and beyond. And Nigel Quigley, finish off. Life's on hold for us, sadly, in odd times. Brilliant show, folks. Thanks, Milia. John Smith saying Forza Leone. There we go. You got to put that in. The boys in Hoylake will be happy with me tonight. And then Des McCusker in France. Cheers out, and the lads. Great show. Great. Listen, Bass. Thank you, sir. Always a real pleasure. Love what you do. And Ian, very best to you for the future. I know we'll have you back on again once things get settled up, and certainly, hopefully, around the period of the Lions tour. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be back on Monday with the Beast of Ray, Kigo, on our 3 topics in 8 minutes, and we'll see you then. And then next week on Wednesday, same time, 20-30 hours, Ireland time, GMT, or on catch up. And we have got women's rugby and women in rugby, where we have got Stefania Evans, who's from Canada, plays for Richmond Ladies and runs the awesome Ruggett Ladies Rugby Apparel. And we've got Fiona Hayes, former Munster and Ireland player, on. And we've got Jazz Robertson, who is our fan in 5, Glasgow Warriors and Scotland fan. Until then, please stay safe. Keep away from each other. It's not the virus that moves around, lads. It's us. And the less we move around, the less the bloody thing moves around. So the more we can get back to normality. There we go. It's as simple as that. Ian McKinley in Italy, thank you, sir. Alex Bass in London, thank you. And we'll see you all soon. Until next week, I'm Big Joe Shep. Got a mila mahagot. Agus slangahol.